and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole, and today I'm going to be picking the books that I will be reading in the month of July. Now, I know in one of my recent videos I said I was not going to be doing a TBR for July, and technically I'm not, because the books that I choose today aren't going to be the only books I read throughout the entire month of July. And that's because I'm currently in the middle of moving, so I'm going to have to switch up my books partway through, and hopefully I'll explain that as we go along, but for now, all you need to know is that we are going to be playing my TBR game, the Unicorn Games, which I swear I've called it that because it's unique and different every single time. There's nothing else like it. I don't know. Anyway, this week, as part of my No Books, No Shelves, No Problem series, I am going to be accessing books from the library. Now, I do have a few of my own physical books with me. However, those will just be used to fill in the gaps. So let me go ahead and explain how I'm going to play this TBR game to choose my books. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. I have brought my deck of letter cards back. So I will be starting out by choosing a card from this set here, and that will give me a letter. And that letter is connected to the title of the book. So whatever letter it is, the title of my book needs to start with that. I will then go on and I will choose a number, and I have a set of numbers here. All these numbers can be found on the bingo board, and hopefully that will be up on your screen right now, and you can see for each number on this bingo board, there is a prompt associated with it. So once I have chosen a letter card and a book-related prompt, I will have to combine those two things and find a book that matches them. So I think that's it. That's basically how I'm going to play the game. I'm going to keep drawing cards and matching books until I get a bingo on this bingo board, and then that's when I'll stop. And I've tried it before, and it usually doesn't end up in coverall. It usually ends up in being about 12 books. The other thing that I should say is if I cannot find a book off my TBR list that I don't own, that is at the library in some format, then it's going to be a unicorn pick for me. And in this particular case, a unicorn pick means I'm randomly going to select one of the 17 books that I own physically here with me. And I'll do all of those at the end because I did a sample run of this game and it just got complicated to try and do it in the middle of the game. But we'll keep track of how many unicorns I need to pull. All right. For book number 1, I have the letter M for the title, and the prompt is prompt number 88. But prompt number 88 gets me the most recently added to my TBR list, and it also needs to be a book whose title starts with the letter M. That ended up being Marina. This is a Gothic novel from Spain, and apparently it's a cult classic there. It was highly recommended by one of my reviewers, Ricardo, who also has his own booktube channel that, if you, like me, only speak English, you can always watch by clicking the closed captions and choosing to watch it in English. So anyway, this book came highly recommended by him. He reads it every single year, which I love to hear, and so I'm super excited to give it a try out, and I will be reading it in the month of July. Book number 2, the letter U, prompt number 103. I guess I could make the cards right side up for you guys, huh? Prompt 103 is an ebook. And for that, since the title needed to start with the letter U, I was a little bit worried whether or not I even had a book on my TBR that would work for this. And it turns out I did. And that was Under Two Flags. This book is by Ouida. And it was actually quite difficult to find this book at my library. I only had 2 books that would have fit this letter and prompt. The first one, I don't even remember what it is, but I don't think it's been released yet. And the second one was Under Two Flags. Under Two Flags is about Bertie, who flees England after accepting the blame for a scandal that threatens his mistress in some manner. And I believe he ends up fleeing to Algeria. And I'm not really sure why it's called Under Two Flags. Maybe it's his life under the 2 different country flags, but I guess we'll find out more. This was a book that I think I decided to put on my TBR because it was on the best books in the world 1899 list. I did a whole video about that, and I believe this was one of the books off that list that I wanted to read. My library did not have a physical copy of this, but I am going to be able to get it through my library on Hoopla, and we'll see how that goes. It's not a particularly long book. However, Hoopla doesn't allow you to download the books onto an e-reader, which is my preference if I'm doing a digital book. So I'm probably going to have to read it off of my phone or computer, and I don't know how I'm going to like that experience. So I guess we're going to find out. Book number 3. Ooh, A to Z. So I can pick any book with the title that begins with any letter of the alphabet. So that's handy. And the prompt is going to be prompt number 52. Prompt number 52 is dictionary, and this means that I need to go to dictionary.com and choose the word of the day and find a book that would match whatever the definition of the word of the day is. And this is a prompt that is used by Chris at Chris's Corner, and I love it every time that she gets this prompt, and so it was one of the prompts that I added to my list. The word of the day being diffident, which is a word that means lacking in self-confidence, and this worked out really well for me, especially because I could choose pretty much any book that fit that prompt. And I ended up choosing No Longer at Ease by Chinua Achebe. And this is about the return of Okonkwo's grandson, I believe, to Africa after being gone for many years or maybe most of his life. And so I'm really interested to see how book 2 in the African trilogy goes. I'm usually not a series person, but this is just a 3-book trilogy and all the books are relatively short. So I'm hoping this second book doesn't let me down. Oh, I don't know why I'm not showing it to you because I do have the book. Here's the copy of the book right here. So, and check out that cover. I'm so intrigued just by this cover alone. So, and like I said, it's a pretty short book. So I'm really interested and excited that my library actually had a physical edition to this. I have 2 libraries in driving distance to my house. One is that way, and the other one is in the exact opposite direction, but neither of them is more than 10 minutes from my house. So I did go to both of them to get the physical books that I have. That was a little bit inconvenient, but it really didn't take that long and got me out and about on this nice sunny day. Oh, and I should add that the reason I went with No Longer at Ease, I haven't read a lot about what this book is about, but I felt like the idea of no longer being at ease usually implies some sort of diffident feeling. Next, I have the letter S in the title and prompt number 71. Prompt 71 is an author project, so I needed to choose a book whose title starts with the letter S and is part of an author project or an author that I want to read to zero. And I'm not sure if this author is one yet, but I feel like she's going to be. And that author would be Emily St. John Mandel. And so because of that, I picked up the book Station 11. This has been on my TBR for a very, very long time, but I haven't wanted to buy it because it's a fairly short book, and I don't tend to buy short books unless I really know I'm going to like them. And I don't know. I don't know why I hesitated to buy this. I just kept putting it off. I think because I knew my library had a lot of copies of it, and it did. So I did go and pick this up at my library, and it was at the opposite library from where No Longer at Ease is. But all the rest of the books that I did haul are all from this same one library, so that was handy. And I don't know a lot about Station 11 other than I think it happens in sort of a dystopian world, and there's a group of people traveling around who are performing Shakespeare. We'll see. Another letter S. There is no penalty for multiple letters. And prompt number 29. Prompt number 29 is for a book that is set in Asia or written by an Asian author. This is part of my world literature prompts. And I had to choose a book whose title starts with the letter S. So I chose Snowflower and the Secret Fan by Lisa C. This is set in 19th century China. I have no recollection of how this ended up on my TBR. And I actually don't know a lot about what this book is about, but I've seen a couple of people mention it briefly, and they all seem to like it, so I'm hoping I will enjoy it as well. It is also on the shorter side, and by shorter, I mean under like 400 pages. That's short to me, so. So I'm glad that my library had this, and I'm looking forward to giving it a try. The letter F Prompt 27. Prompt 27 was a book set in Europe or by a European author, and I chose Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. So, editing Nicole here, you're busting in because if, unlike me, you have realized that Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead is a title that does not start with the letter F, then you're more on top of your game than I was. So, I'm here talking about what this book is about. This author is from Poland, so it is set in Europe, but I'm going to have to pick a different book for this prompt, and I don't know what that is now, so we're just going to skip ahead to the next prompt, and I'll fix this one later. P 62. Feel like I definitely should be saying bingo. Prompt 62 is a Storygraph random pick. And so I went on to Storygraph to see what their random pick was for me in their Storygraph Up Next section. And their pick was Howard's End by E.M. Forster. My library had multiple ways to make this book available to me, and I opted to go with requesting it from a different library. So this is the second book that I will be requesting, and we'll see how long it takes for this to get in. I don't know a lot about Howard's End. In fact, it only occurred to me today that there was no apostrophe in the title, so it wasn't Howard's End. It sounds like it's a place name instead of a person's name. So we'll see how this book goes, but I've wanted to read something by E.M. Forster. I believe I saw the movie of this a long time ago. Not sure, though. So we'll see if it gets in time for me to read it and go from there. Oh, and the number is prompt 13. Prompt 13 was a dystopian, and it needed to be a book whose title started with the letter O. And I looked at my TBR list, and there were none on there. And while I could have gone to the library and certainly found a book that starts with the letter O that was a dystopian, I didn't want to just add random things to my TBR. And so for this book, I'm going to have to do a unicorn pick. But like I said, we'll do all of those at the end, so I will just make a tally mark, and we'll just keep track of that as we go. The letter I, and the number 11. Prompt number 11 was a romance or a book featuring romance, and it needed to be a book whose title starts with the letter I. On my TBR list, I do have The Inheritance by Louisa May Alcott, and I don't know anything about this book other than that I'm intrigued. I want to read more of Alcott after having read Along Fatal Love Chase, and I've heard that a lot of people who read this book really enjoy it. Like I said, don't really know much about this book other than that people who have read it like it, and for some people, they end up finding this is their favorite Alcott book. So I'll be interested to see if it's mine. And then I have the free space, which in this case creates a bingo for me. So the free space means I get to pick any book. So that'll be an easy one to pick from the library because despite my best efforts, every time I go to the library, I bring home more books than I intended to get. So yeah. And then finally, to get my bingo, I needed a free pick. And so my free pick is going to be To the Bright Edge of the World. This is by the same author who wrote The Snow Child, which I read earlier this year and absolutely loved. I thought it was beautifully written and a really interesting, unique story. I'm very interested in the storyline in this book and really just want to read more by this author. Honestly, I would have bought it right after reading The Snow Child, but I saw that my library had so many copies of it. I was like, maybe I should read the book first before deciding if I want to buy it, especially because I'm moving. And my understanding of this book is that it tells the story of a colonel and his wife. The colonel is leading an expedition up into like remote, untamed Alaska. It takes place in 1885. Meanwhile, the wife is at home and she is, I think, writing letters back and forth to him, but he may or may not be getting her letters, something along those lines. I may be confusing it with one of her other books. Anyway, by the time I start reading this, we'll all know more. Okay, so now we have to do a unicorn pick, and for this I have rather precariously stacked up all of the books that are on my own TBR that I am moving with me. And it includes the books that I am actually still in the middle of reading and buddy reads and book projects. There are only two books that aren't here that I have on me. And those two books, one is for a project that will be later this year. And actually, two are for projects that are for later this year. And one of them is for a project that I need to read a couple more books before I get to. So I didn't think it made sense to include these on this list since I wouldn't be reading them anyway. So I have my cards here. These are just number cards 1 through 17. And I just have one unicorn pick to pull. So let's see what book that's going to be. Book 15. So I won't torture us. I will count from the bottom. So this is book 17, 16, 15. That's convenient. So let me pull that book out very carefully. Okay, so book 15 is The Mysteries of Paris. This is a book that I am in the middle of doing a buddy read with, and we have made some good progress with this book. In the month of July, we will be reading books 5 and 6 in here. There are 10 books total with an epilogue as well, and so we have figured out that there's a couple of months where the books in here are shorter, and so we can combine them because we're reading just one chapter a day. And at the pace that we are going, we will finish this book in October, which sounds like a really long time from now, but I'm already surprised how quickly this has gone by. We are about 500, almost 600 pages in, and it's really felt rather effortless. So I am looking forward to continuing book 5 and seeing what happens, and I will update you on how this read is going during my July wrap up. I also need to include on my TBR a book that I am currently reading, and that is *And Lady of the Clubs* by Helen Santmyer. This book I am reading for the Big Summer Book Challenge, and it is a big book, and it will take me all the rest of summer to get through it. So I just plan on reading about 40 pages of this a day. That's pretty easy. The writing style is pretty simple and straightforward, and it reads quickly. I am enjoying this book. I am tabbing it. I have quite a few thoughts as I'm going along, and so that's been fun. And yeah, I'm enjoying this reread a lot more than I thought I was going to, though it is a slow-paced story, which is the reason that rather than plowing straight through it, I've decided to give myself the entire rest of the summer challenge to read it. The summer challenge ends on Labor Day, I believe, so I've got some good time left still to get this done. And the final book going on my TBR for now is The Phantom Tollbooth. In July, I will be doing a Phantom Tollbooth read-along where I will be spending the day with you guys reading The Phantom Tollbooth. It's a short children's book. It's a classic. It will not take all day to read, so I'm sure I'll get to some of my other books as well, assuming that I don't go and reread the book during that very long reading sprint. Because I love this book. I just read it 2 months ago. That's how much I love this book that I'm willing to read it again 2 months later. So I'm looking forward to that. I will link in the description box below information if you want to join that read along and come do the reading sprint with me. So that is everything. I will hold up the whole stack in a moment, but I do want to explain. I keep referring to this as my TBR for July, but this is a fairly flexible TBR. And the reason is that I'm only going to have access to these library books for the next 2 weeks. Not because my library is going to take them back, but because at the time that I am filming this, I am moving out of this area in 2 weeks. And so I will have to return the books then. What I will try and do when that happens is maybe see if I can still get a digital version of them so I can at least finish any of the books that I'm in the middle of. But any of the books that I haven't even started will go back. And then when I get to my next book resource, I will have to replace those books or work with new prompts off my TBR bingo board. So that's how the TBR bingo board is going to work. It's going to be the same board for the entire month of July, but I can switch books out as need be. The books that I need to read to get a bingo may change over the course of the month, but they don't count as officially being set on my bingo board until I have completed a book that fits the prompt. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, like and subscribe and keep watching, and you'll see how this all plays out. But let me go ahead and put together the whole stack of what I will be reading this month, because I don't know about you, but I think I'm a little confused. At least that's not what I meant to say, but that's probably true. So here's my stack. And, surprisingly, this doesn't look too bad. I am, however, still missing the couple of books that are going to be requested, as well as the books that I have that are going to be read digitally. There will also be Under Two Flags by Ouida, Howard's End, and The Inheritance. So I guess I'll pop those up on the screen so you can see those. And those are all the books that will be on my TBR for the month of July so far. And at some point that might change once all the library books have to go back. However, to get the bingo, the only books that I need to read are these three books, as well as Under the Two Flags by Ouida and The Inheritance by Louisa May Alcott. So there's only 5 books that I need to read this month to get a bingo. If I get a bingo by the end of July, then what that means is I get to add 5 books to a book haul list. That's it for today. Let me know what you plan on reading in the month of July. And yeah, I've got my work cut out for me. And I hope you can join me for the Phantom Tollbooth read along. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye.